The fluorescent lights flickered once, just once, but it was enough to make Daniel Carter feel like the ground beneath him had shifted. "Pack your things," the hospital director said coldly. "You're done here." Daniel stood frozen in the middle of the pediatric ward, still holding a small stuffed bear he had just promised to fix for a crying child. Around him, machines beeped softly, nurses moved quickly, and life continued, as if his world hadn't just shattered. "Sir, I've worked here for 8 years, Daniel said, his voice trembling but controlled. "At least tell me why." Director William Hawthorne didn't even look up from his tablet. "Budget cuts, policy violations, take your pick. You're a liability now." A liability. The word hit harder than anything else. Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. He thought of his daughter Lily waiting at home, 8 years old, bright smile, asthma that required expensive medication. He couldn't afford to lose this job, not now. "I never broke any policy," Daniel said quietly. Hawthorne finally looked up, his expression sharp. "You treated a patient without proper authorization last night. That alone is grounds for termination." Daniel's mind flashed back instantly. A young boy barely breathing, no guardian present, no time for paperwork. "I saved his life," Daniel whispered. "And risked the hospital's reputation in the process," Hawthorne snapped. "You're done here." Daniel said nothing more. There was no point. In places like this, truth didn't matter as much as paperwork. He placed the stuffed bear gently on the counter, removed his ID badge, and walked out. Each step felt heavier than the last. Outside, the sky was overcast, matching the storm building inside him. Daniel sat on a bench near the hospital entrance, staring at his hands. Hands that had healed countless patients. Hands that had worked double shifts just to keep his daughter safe. Now they were empty. He pulled out his phone and looked at a picture of Lily, her gap-toothed smile, her tiny arms wrapped around him. The caption she had made him write under it, "My dad is my hero." Daniel let out a shaky breath. "Not anymore, kiddo." Back inside the hospital, tension suddenly spiked. A nurse rushed down the hallway. "Emergency inbound, critical condition, no clearance yet." Another voice shouted, "We need Dr. Carter." "He's been terminated," someone replied. "What? He's the only one who can handle this." Director Hawthorne overheard the commotion but waved it off. "Find someone else." But there was no one else. Minutes later, a deep, thunderous sound filled the air. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Everyone froze. Nurses rushed to the windows. Patients looked up in confusion. "A helicopter," someone whispered. The sound grew louder, shaking the building itself. On the hospital roof, a Navy helicopter descended, its blades slicing through the heavy air. Director Hawthorne's face drained of color. "What is going on?" he muttered. Outside, Daniel looked up, shielding his eyes from the wind and dust kicked up by the rotor blades. A Navy helicopter here. The aircraft landed with precision. Within seconds, armed personnel jumped out, followed by a high-ranking officer in full uniform. The officer scanned the area urgently. "Where is Daniel Carter?" Daniel blinked, confused. I'm Daniel." The officer walked straight toward him, his expression intense but respectful. "Sir, we need you immediately." Daniel stood up slowly. "What? I don't understand." "There's no time," the officer said. "My son is on that helicopter. He's dying. And you're the only doctor who has ever successfully performed the procedure he needs." Daniel's heart skipped. I've only done that surgery once," he said. "And that one time saved a life," the officer replied firmly. "Please, you're his only chance." Daniel hesitated for just a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Take me to him." Back inside the hospital, chaos turned into stunned silence as Daniel walked in, escorted by Navy personnel. Director Hawthorne stepped forward, visibly shaken. What is the meaning of this? The officer turned to him, his voice calm but commanding. This man is about to save my son's life. Hawthorne stiffened. He's no longer employed here. The officer's eyes hardened. Then consider this a temporary reinstatement. No one dared to argue. In the operating room, Daniel's hands moved with precision, but his mind was a storm. The young boy on the table pale, fragile, barely holding on. Machines beeped erratically. Scalpel. Clamp. Pressure dropping. Daniel's jaw tightened. Stay with me, kid. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Every decision mattered. Every second counted. He remembered Lily, her laughter, her belief in him. My dad is my hero. Not anymore. No. Not today. Clear, Daniel shouted. The shock jolted the boy's body. For a moment, nothing. Then, beep. A steady rhythm. The room exhaled as one. He's stable, a nurse whispered. Daniel stepped back, his legs nearly giving out. He had done it. Again. Outside the operating room, the officer stood waiting, his fists clenched. When Daniel finally emerged, exhausted but steady, their eyes met. Well, the officer asked, his voice barely holding together. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. He's going to make it. The officer didn't say a word. He just pulled Daniel into a tight embrace. Thank you, he whispered. Director Hawthorne watched the entire scene unfold, his face pale with realization. He had fired the man who just saved a life that the entire hospital couldn't. When Daniel walked past him, Hawthorne cleared his throat awkwardly. Dr. Carter, about earlier. Daniel stopped but didn't turn around. You said I was a liability, Daniel said quietly. Hawthorne swallowed. I was mistaken. There was a long pause. Then Daniel turned. No, he said calmly. You were focused on rules, I was focused on a life. That's the difference. Hawthorne had no reply. Later that evening, Daniel returned home. Lily ran to him the moment he opened the door. Daddy, she shouted, hugging him tightly. You're late. Daniel laughed softly, lifting her into his arms. Yeah, big day. She looked at him with bright, curious eyes. Did you save someone today? Daniel smiled, his heart full. Yeah, he said, I did. Lily grinned. I knew it, you're my hero. Daniel held her a little tighter this time. Because now he believed it too. The next morning, Daniel received a call. The hospital board had reviewed everything. Director Hawthorne had been suspended pending investigation. And Daniel. He was offered his job back, with full authority to make critical decisions in emergency cases. But more importantly, respect. Sometimes the world tests you not by your failures, but by how strongly you stand in your truth when everything is taken away. Daniel Carter lost his job that day. But in just a few minutes, he proved something far greater. That true heroes don't need titles. They just need courage when it matters most.